So finishing up chapter 2, we see the end of Marmeladov's story about Sonya, where after she turns to prostitution to create some sort of income for the family since the father is drunkard, he goes and he gets his position back, promising not to drink anymore, and which kind of puts a different spin on the story, because originally when he tells the story of him losing his job, he says that it was like, oh, it was layoffs, it was cutbacks. But then when he goes to get his job back, his old boss is like, you've disappointed me before, no more of that. Like, I think he's referring to, like, yeah, you were drinking on the job, you weren't really doing your job, and so, keep it together. And so Marmeladov is kind of rewriting the narrative a little bit, I think, when he's retelling this story, taking a little bit less of the blame for his original job loss. But he, to his credit, goes back and gets his job, and he is just a hero now to Katerina Ivanova, and she can't wait to brag to the landlady who's been giving her a hard time about not paying rent, or, always telling her to get out of the lodging. She's like, oh, my, Semyon, he went and got his job back. And she puffs him up. She tells this elaborate retelling of the story about how his boss was like, oh, we barely been getting by without you, and we're so glad that you're back. Not at all what actually happened, but this is what Katerina Ivanova does in order to preserve dignity and to get people to maybe think of her in the more flattering light that she thinks that she deserves. And so her and Sonya, with Sonya's money, obviously, get together an outfit for him, make him look very respectable. He brings home his first paycheck, and she's, prettied herself up as best she can, and, puts out this nice dinner. He's like, oh, we had 2 courses, we had soup and meat. Like, that's never happened before. And so he's, she's so proud of him, and, positive reinforcement, like, this, you'll get more of this, and he tears up at the point where he remembers how she called him her poppet, like, where she expressed this, tender moment toward him and said, you're my poppet, like, where she's just so proud of him. And he tears up, and he kind of loses the story for a minute, because this grieves him, because he has fallen from that pedestal that she had him on. Because soon after, he gets up in the middle of the night, steals the money that she had kept in her lockbox, the rest of his salary, and he's gone on a 5-day drinking binge, drinking away everything that they had, and living on a barge in a hay. He sold his nice outfit that they bought for him, traded it for something less. He's just been, like, trying to get money, and now he's run out of money. And that's the point. That's the only reason why, probably, that he's ready to go back, is because there is nothing left. He has nothing really left to stay out for. And he talks about that it's a consolation to him that she beats him and pulls his hair. He knows that he is in the wrong, and so he feels like he deserves the punishment. He deserves it, and that's why he says it's a consolation, because he knows that it's what he deserves. But he goes into this really interesting story where he talks about, on Judgment Day, that, even though the world judges Sonya, even though the landlady judges Sonya, the landlady landlord has kicked Sonya out, kind of standing on pride, and saying, we can't have a prostitute living here. She's going to, she's bringing dishonor to this whole place. I mean, they're not reputable people either, but they're, just kind of standing on airs and graces, like, oh, this is too much, because there's another tenant that has complained about Sonya being a prostitute. And so that she has a yellow ticket, and everybody knows she's a prostitute and can't have her living here, because then it's going to look like it's a house of prostitution. So they basically kick her out, and she has to go live in another tenant area where, they don't mind that she's a prostitute, because they're like this family of cleft palates and they have no other income. So they rent out the room to her. in order to, have income for their family. So she has her own room, assuming that's where she does her work. And he's talking about on Judgment Day that God is going to see her for her heart. He's not going to look at her for her deeds of prostitution, because he's going to recognize that in her heart she didn't want to do that, but that she did it out of love for her family. And that because of that love and because of the true motivation behind what she was doing, that she's going to be welcomed with open arms and she's going to be loved into the kingdom of heaven. And he's kind of talking to the other drunkards in the room, saying, so are we. God is going to say, yeah, you act like a beast. You act like somebody from the world. You're living in the world. You're drinking like the men of the world. But even you too are going to be welcomed into the kingdom of heaven. And it's kind of this beautiful story in the middle of it all. And you can see that this, he knows that it's like he's not really worthy to be redeemed, but that Christ has redeemed him anyway. And that he, even though he cannot get a hold of this disease, and even though he's tried and he's failed his family and he's failed his daughter, he's even saying that when he ran out of money, he went to his daughter and he took the last of her money. And he's like, she probably needs it. He talks about how she's got to keep up appearances so that men will want to be with her, that she'll be pretty enough to attract men so she can make more money. And here I've taken that last of the money that she needed to do that. And he's like, ashamed of that. And he understands fully like the shame of what he's done. But yet still clinging to the hope and understanding seems to be that even he can be redeemed by what Christ has done. So that's like a beautiful story in the middle of it, and kind of like this running thread through Crime and Punishment of, in this time when people at the time were kind of like scoffing at religion and these old ideas, and kind of taking up with like, oh, well, what is truth and what is morality and who's to say, and all of these kind of questioning. There's this running theme of people still in these desperate times, even when it feels like God's not helping them, when they feel like it looks like they're alone. They're believing in something more. They're believing that God is actually going to help them, protect them, and welcome them home. And so he comes to the end of his story. He's come to the end of his pitcher of beer, and he says, it's time for me to go home. Will you take me home? And Raskolnikov is like, yeah, I want to get out of here. I got to get out of this place. And he was planning on taking him home because he can see that he's never going to make it on his own. And so he gets to this tenement, and they don't even live in their own secluded room. It's like they live in almost like a passageway that goes to other rooms. So it's like anybody who wants to go into the other rooms has to walk through their apartment. And so she's got all the doors open. There's smoke coming in. Katerina Ivanova's got this consumptive disease where she's coughing, and there's all this smoke coming in. The children are crying, probably because she's been beating them, because she's out of her mind with worry about what is she even going to do. And she sees Raskolnikov come in, and she doesn't think anything about it, because people come through her room all the time to get into the other room where they're in there playing cards and smoking. And she looks past him and she sees her husband on her knees in the doorway, and she just starts yelling at him like, where is the money? Have you drunk through all the money that was all we had? And grabbing him by the hair and shaking him violently. And of course the kids wake up and they're crying, and it's this chaotic scene as you would expect her to react when he finally comes home after 5 days drunk with, she's like, we spent all that money on that, outfit for you. Where did that go? And you're not even dressed in what you left in. Like, she's just like, just at the last end of her rope with this guy. Like, this is what he does. And she's just like disgusted. And lashing out, and Raskolnikov is looking at the children crying and just looking at these terrible circumstances, and he takes some change out of his pocket and he places it quietly on the windowsill so that when it all calms down, that Katerina Ivanova will find it and have money to give to the children to eat, because he remembers in the story that Marmeladov told that Sonya doesn't have any more money. Sonya's not going to be able to get them anything to eat because Marmeladov came and took the last of her money so that he could go continue on drinking. And she gave it all to him. And so he gets on the stairs and he thinks a little bit like, well, I just pawned my father's watch to get like barely anything for it. I really need that money. And they do have Sonya. Like, she can always go out and, turn another trick and get some more money. But what am I going to get more money from? I, pawned my father's watch, and it's not a logical decision that he's made, but it's kind of the first time and not the last time that we'll see that he instinctually is a caring and giving person, even though he doesn't act like it in the book. Oftentimes he acts very cold. He acts like he doesn't care. But when these moments come and you see like what is his first instinct is to just give them money. He is compassionate and he cares about the children and he cares about Marmeladov, and he wants to do the right thing. He does what a good Christian person would have done. Is like, oh, they need the money more than me, I'm going to give them the money. And so I think that almost has more weight to it, where then as he walks on the stairs, he's like, oh, I shouldn't have given them that money. I need that money. And then he's like, I probably would have given it to him anyway if I had really thought it through. So it's like there's the rational, like if you think it through, and then there's the like just your first instinct. And his first instinct is to give. And so I think that that's very interesting. And I think we'll see that again throughout the book. So that is the wrap up for chapter 2. Next, we will be going into chapter 3, and we'll see what happens with Raskolnikov after this, what he decides to do about the pawnbroker, and moving forward. So we'll see you in chapter 3.